She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
There is an unusual percentage of good-looking people who support Donald Trump. I don't know what it is. And then on the left, you have these lunatics shaving their heads, wearing their blue bracelets, having their enormous reading glasses everywhere.
If you clicked on this video, it's because you want to see exactly how Megyn Kelly scorched Joy Behar for her outrageous remarks, and I promise you're about to hear it all. This wasn't some mild disagreement or a polite exchange of words. This was a no-holds-barred response to one of the most blatant examples of hypocrisy you'll ever see from the Views panel. And what makes this so explosive is that Joy Behar wasn't just making a joke. She was making a statement that revealed exactly how the so-called tolerant left operates when it comes to women in politics. Instead of empowering them, they belittle them if they dare to align with the wrong side. And Megyn Kelly was having none of it. It all started when Joy Behar commented on Caroline Leavitt, Donald Trump's new press secretary, dismissing her not for her ideas, not for her abilities, but with a snide remark suggesting she was only chosen because, according to Trump, she's a 10. That's the level of discourse we're talking about here. The implication? That Leavitt's hard work, experience, and skill mean nothing because her appearance is all that supposedly matters. And coming from someone like Joy Behar, who has spent years framing herself as a voice for women, it's not just insulting, it's revealing. Megyn Kelly immediately saw through this. On her show, she didn't hold back in exposing how hollow this kind of rhetoric really is.
And warning the senators who are beaten up on RFKJ today.
In 2020, I cut large checks to Chuck Schumer to help Democrats flip 2 Senate seats in Georgia from red to blue. The 2 candidates I helped elect, Senator Raphael Warnock and Senator John Ossoff. Please know I will be watching your votes very closely. I will make it my personal mission that you lose your seats in the Senate if you vote against the future health of America's children. And more than that, I also want to say to Senators Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, Bill Cassidy, Tom Tillis, James Lankford, Cory Booker, John Fetterman, Bernie Sanders, and Catherine Cortez Masto, this is a bipartisan message, and it comes directly from me. While Bobby may be willing to play nice, I won't. If you vote against him, I will personally fund challengers to primary you in your next election, and I will enlist hundreds of thousands to join me. You're either on the side of transparency and accountability, or you are standing in the way. The choice is yours. Please choose wisely.
Kelly pointed out the obvious. If a conservative commentator or a Republican politician ever made the same kind of remark about a woman on the left, the outrage would be deafening. Headlines would scream sexism, celebrities would pile on in disgust, and networks like ABC would spend days on hand-wringing segments condemning the remark. But when Joy Behar does it, silence. Or worse, laughter from her co-hosts. This is exactly what Kelly calls the double standard of the modern left, rules for thee, not for me. That phrase became the heartbeat of Kelly's response because it perfectly captures the dynamic we're seeing. The left loves to accuse conservatives of sexism, racism, and every other ism you can think of, but when their own leaders or media darlings indulge in exactly the same behavior, the rules suddenly change. Megyn Kelly knows this playbook inside and out, and she tore it apart piece by piece. She reminded her viewers that this is the same party that gave Bill Clinton a prime spot at the DNC, despite his well-documented treatment of women.
Absolutely, but this is what being a Democrat is about. If you look at Jack Schlossberg, he got to go on stage and speak at the DNC. Bill Clinton, he's been terrible. He's the patriarch of that party. He got to speak at the DNC.
The same party that props up Kamala Harris despite her disastrous approval ratings. The same party that claims to hate billionaires while cozying up to them when they're the ones writing checks.
Kamala Harris, she's a disaster. She got to be the candidate. So the Democrats, it's always the rules for thee, not for me. Yeah, Doug Emhoff as well. It's the rules for thee, not for me. So if a Republican went out there and said someone was hot or sexy, like you said, they would be called a sexist pig.
And Kelly didn't stop there. She connected Joy Behar's insult to a broader trend of belittling women who align with Trump. It wasn't just about Caroline Leavitt. She brought up Nicole Shanahan, the vice presidential pick aligned with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who recently faced her own wave of dismissive remarks. One viral tweet reduced Shanahan to nothing more than "so hot," followed by a comment mocking her as a bird, fragile and laughable.
Right on, Nicole. So his response was, "She's literally so hot. Who knew? Cannot imagine a senator being intimidated by this bird." That is the perfect tweet. That is leftism in a nutshell.
Kelly's point was crystal clear. This isn't empowering women. This is tearing them down. And worse, it's tearing them down for the very things the left claims to oppose. Imagine, Kelly said, if Tucker Carlson had ever tweeted that about a Democratic woman. He would have been crucified in the press as a sexist pig. But when it comes from the left, no problem. In fact, it gets defended or ignored. That's the hypocrisy, Megyn, Kelly refuses to let slide.
Right? Like, if Tucker Carlson ever remarked on how hot Nicole Shanahan is, he'd be getting called a sexist pig by everyone over on Jack Schlossberg's side of the aisle. So he puts it in there, why? To diminish her. He's actually using it to diminish her down to her appearance, as we see with the follow-up line, which shows he is not her fan. Cannot imagine a senator being intimidated by this bird. This bird, like this little breakable, sad, weak little thing who's scary to no one, right? So it's like, try to knock her down by reducing her just to her looks, then insult her as a weakling who no one is afraid of. This is the party that is pro-woman, right? Not Trump, not RFKJ, because he flew the coop to stay on the bird motif. It's perfectly on brand.
And it struck a chord because people are noticing it everywhere. They're noticing how Democrats rail against billionaires while accepting money from them in droves. They're noticing how the same crowd that shouts about standards of morality is filled with scandals of its own. Kelly put it bluntly, many of these figures couldn't withstand even the lightest public scrutiny, yet they stand on their soapboxes condemning everyone else. She called them degenerates outright, pointing out how quickly they accuse the right of immorality while covering for their own allies.
Shanahan, she's a much more formidable force than I think people realize. I was one of the first people who got to meet her on the campaign. I was on the VP committee, which I was grateful to be a part of. And Nicole's a very formidable person. I think she's been written off, but she has a lot in store for the future.
As Kelly's analysis dug deeper, she turned back to Caroline Leavitt. She acknowledged that yes, Leavitt is young and relatively new to the national spotlight, but that doesn't mean she's unqualified. In fact, she praised her strength, her poise, and the way she's handled the job so far. Kelly even said Leavitt will only get stronger with time, growing into the role and proving her critics wrong. And then came the real sting. By dismissing her as nothing more than a 10, Joy Behar wasn't just taking a cheap shot. She was revealing her own contempt for women who refused to fall in line with left-wing orthodoxy.
So this also happened on The View today, where Joy Behar referred to the new press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, who did an amazing job this week. She's green and she's young, but she's very strong, and she's going to get even better. This is why she thinks Trump chose her. Listen.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though.
So that's why he chose Caroline Leavitt, according to the tolerant left.
Kelly drove the point home by contrasting the left and the right. On the right, she argued, there's still a sense of standards in how you present yourself, how you carry yourself, how you take care of your body and mind. She pointed to the way Republicans, especially under Trump, have made an effort to make America hot again, not in a superficial way, but in the sense of encouraging self-respect and effort.
Because of her looks. And I posted this out online. It's an attempt to diminish her.
Right.
She's nothing more than a pretty face. She can't be taken seriously. But I think you made this point on my show, like, let's face it, we really are making America hot again. Like this. Right.
I said we're about
Trump
to have
cabinet.
the hottest cabinet.
And let's face it, Republicans in general these days, like that New York Magazine cover, I don't know. I just feel like Republicans are all about these days making an effort, pulling yourself together, presenting yourself well. There is an unusual percentage of good-looking people who support Donald Trump. I don't know what it is.
Compare that, she said, to the left, where the prevailing culture is that anything goes. No judgment, no standards, no expectations. Just do whatever you want, and if someone criticizes it, blame them. That mindset, Kelly argued, has consequences, from rising depression rates among young liberal women to the overall decline in accountability. And it's this exact contrast that infuriates the Joy Behars of the world. Because when Republicans put forward women who are smart, strong, and yes, put together, it undermines the narrative that the GOP is anti-woman. It shows that conservative women can thrive without needing the approval of liberal feminists. That's why Behar resorts to mocking their appearance, because it's the only weapon she has left. Kelly's takedown resonated because it wasn't just about one offhand remark on The View. It was about exposing a pattern of behavior. From the treatment of Nicole Shanahan to the sneers at Caroline Leavitt, to the selective outrage over comments that would be condemned if the roles were reversed, the hypocrisy is staggering. And Megyn Kelly knew that viewers didn't just want another headline. They wanted someone to call it out in plain language.
And then on the left, you have these lunatics shaving their heads, wearing their blue bracelets, having their enormous reading glasses everywhere. Like, it's not a good look. It's not something young people are going to want to be associated with. And back to the original point, Joy Behar would be ripping on Jesse Waters if he said the only reason Joe Biden selected somebody was because she was a 10. Though I can't think of anybody in his cabinet who'd come to... Anyway, whatever.
As her response continued, Kelly even touched on her own experience. She reminded her audience that she knows firsthand what it's like to face dismissive remarks about appearance, especially in an industry where women are constantly judged on looks. But she also made it clear that those attempts to diminish her never worked, and they won't work on women like Leavitt or Shanahan either. If anything, they backfire because they reveal the insecurity of those making the insults. The brilliance of Kelly's response wasn't just the firepower, but the calm precision with which she dismantled Behar's remark. She didn't need to shout or rant. She laid out the double standard, showed example after example, and then tied it all back to the bigger picture. That's what made it so devastating. It wasn't just a clap back, it was an indictment of a whole way of operating. And viewers noticed. The reaction online was overwhelming. People who don't even typically follow Kelly's show were sharing the clip, saying things like, "Finally someone said it," and "This is exactly what I've been thinking." Conservative women in particular rallied behind her, thanking her for standing up against the kind of casual sexism that gets swept under the rug when it comes from the left. And even some independents chimed in, admitting that it's hard to deny the double standards once they're laid out so clearly. By the end of it, Kelly left no doubt about where she stands. To her, the idea that Caroline Leavitt was picked only for her looks is not just offensive, it's a lie. She sees Leavitt as part of a new generation of conservative women who won't be silenced by outdated insults, and she sees Joy Behar's remarks as proof that the left is running out of arguments. When you can't debate policy, when you can't defend results, you resort to sneers and cheap shots. But as Kelly showed, that strategy is collapsing under its own hypocrisy. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with a stark reminder that the political battlefield isn't just about legislation or elections, it's about narratives. And right now, the left's narrative is cracking because people are tired of watching them preach one set of rules while living by another. Megyn Kelly's fiery response was more than just a clapback to Joy Behar. It was a rallying cry against a culture of double standards and a defense of women who dare to step outside the approved script. And maybe that's why it hit so hard. Because in the end, Kelly wasn't just standing up for Caroline Leavitt or Nicole Shanahan. She was standing up for every woman who's been told she doesn't belong because she doesn't fit the mold. Every woman who's been reduced to her looks instead of respected for her talent. Every woman who's been mocked, dismissed, or sneered at for daring to take a stand. And in doing so, she reminded us why voices like hers matter, because sometimes the only way to cut through hypocrisy is to scorch it with the truth.